Welcome to the IonaHoops.com podcast with your host, Guy Flatico.
Hey there, Gale Nation. What's up? Season 4, Episode 7 of the IonaHoops.com podcast, and we are now in season, finally. So the episodes will start to get a bit more frequent, a bit sketchy over the next few weeks, but once we get by the holiday episodes, we'll hit you once a week from there pretty much. We have games to talk about and games to preview, but no question an encouraging start for Tobin Anderson and the Iona Gales 2 games into the slate. What's more, we'll have none other than the one and only Jaden Daly from DalyDoseOfHoops to help us take a look at the MAAC, as that portion of the schedule will be here before we know it. It's really fast, and even the MAAC weekend is a little earlier than normal. But before we recap what's happened and preview what's to come, we got Iona.
Ionas.
Welcome to Iona JoJo Wallace. The 6'4" shooting guard from South Kent was in attendance at the Meet the Gales event a month back, and he's a teammate of another Iona commit, Jacob Hogarth. He's the son of former Syracuse big man John Wallace, and one recruiting service said he's got a great handle and effectively gets to the rim, crafty finisher, 3-level scorer, but also has lead guard skills with great vision. His recruiting was just getting going as Iona was in on him early, and NJIT appears to have been the only other offer he had. Again, welcome to Iona, JoJo.
Ionas.
Iona women's coach Ann Zamillo once played for Tony Bozzella way back even before his Iona years at LIU at the turn of the century. Yeah, Tony's not that sentimental though. His Seton Hall Lady Pirates routed the Lady Gales in their season opener 75-32 this week. This one was over quickly as Iona trailed 22-6 after the first quarter. Hey, Seton Hall's among the cream of the crop in the Big East this year, so you toss this result out the window and get ready for the next one, which happens to be tomorrow night at 7 in their home opener against, you guessed it, LIU. Life is a circle indeed. Good luck to the Lady Gales in that one.
Ionas.
I think it's time to spend a moment here on a couple other Iona sports, starting with men's cross country. Iona continued what has to be one of the longest running dynasties in sports anywhere in the world, winning its 33rd straight MAAC title a couple weeks back, and followed that up yesterday by winning the NCAA Northeast Regional. Entering the event as the number 27 team in the country, the Gales took down teams like number 8 Syracuse and number 15 Harvard to take the top spot in the region and claim a berth in next weekend's NCAA championships. And speaking of championships, the Iona men's soccer team will be vying for one tomorrow as the top-seeded Gales host third-seeded Rider in the MAAC finals at Mazzella Field at noon. Iona's 12-3 on the season and has a computer rating that surpasses anything the men's basketball team has done in recent memory, including the Pitino years. So here's hoping they can cap off what has been really a special season with a victory on the pitch tomorrow. All right, let's hit the offer roundup.
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
The Iona staff has reportedly offered 2025 3-star point guard Preston Edmeade out of Williston, Northampton in Massachusetts and Middlesex Magic AAU. The 6-foot point guard is the younger brother of future MAAC member Merrimack's Malik Edmeade, and Preston's now got a dozen D1 offers, including Seton Hall, Hofstra, UAB, Manhattan, Bryant, and FDU. Stay tuned for more on his recruitment as well as other offers. All right, it's time to recap our first 2 games as the Gales sit at 1-1 with a 10-day break before traveling to Florida for a 3-game set. We've talked ad nauseum on this podcast about how Iona's going to need time to gel. There's going to be uneven performances. We're not even sure what we really have. Certainly Charleston was better positioned for this one at home. A few key players returning from last year's special year, including CEA Preseason Player of the Year. And what's more, I broke the news right before the game that King Oz is out for a bit with a leg injury. Surely this is all recipe for disaster and the Gales are going to get murdered here, right? Well, not so much. This one was wide open in the first half, with Greg Gordon going nuts to keep Iona in it at 46-39 at the break. honestly, my thoughts at halftime were that the Cougars would pull away in the second half. But both teams were much better defensively over the final 20, and this suited Iona just fine as the Gales actually surged ahead toward the latter stages of this one. But then, the impact of no Oz did show itself as Andy Berzovic, a fluid 6'10", true Euro-style big with just the amazing footwork that you can imagine that all true Euro bigs have, really had no one to guard him at that point. And he made 3 buckets, I think, in the final 3 minutes to ensure that the Cougars were going to win this one. The Gales executed a final play quite well, but Weza Panzo's 3 at the buzzer fell off the mark, and Charleston escaped with a 71-69 victory. The defense was there in this one for the Gales, holding the Cougars to 42% shooting, only 18% from 3. Gordon made a huge splash in his debut, putting up 18 and 14. And Don Treatu had 17. The O, though, generally struggled, shooting just 41% overall, 25% from 3, and really tallying only 7 assists, so the ball movement was not there, a lot of one-on-one play. Sultan Adewale didn't score, and only 2 rebounds, but he did some work on D in this one, blocking 3 shots, doing yeoman's work guarding the bigger Cougars up front. And how about the freshman tandem of Jeremiah Quigley and Gene Aranguren? Quigley had 9 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals in his D1 debut, and Aranguren 8 points and 6, providing sparks during the second half push. Given what the Charleston program was last year and what they're expected to be this year, this was a highly encouraging performance despite the outcome, especially when you consider no Oz out there as well. Tobin told me a few weeks back that if we went to Charleston and played well, it would bode well for our entire season, and I think he's right. Coming off of Charleston, expectations were high for the home opener against Sacred Heart, but if you follow Northeast basketball, you know the Pioneers are no slouch this year, picked as favorites in the NEC. This is a veteran team with 3 MAAC transfers, and given that this was a bye game against a future league rival, you know Sacred Heart was going to try to make a statement. And for about 36 minutes they did. Iona did not play with the same energy as they did Charleston, and it showed, as the Pios absolutely shredded the Gales' pressure defense for repeated easy buckets and open threes for a good part of the game. And on the other end, Don Treatu is the primary reason Iona wasn't blown out in this one, quite frankly. Treatu had 19 in the first half as the Pios led 40 to 39 at the break. And he finished with a career-high 34 as he valiantly kept Iona within striking distance. Then with 3:36 left, all NEC weapon Nico Gillette made a pair of free throws to put Sacred Heart up 80-75, and you just wondered whether Iona was going to find a way. You just wondered if this was a growth opportunity for the team as a whole. Wonder no more. The Gales finished the game on a 13-1 run, sparked by Joel Brown's 5 points and 2 steals during that stretch. And Iona came away with an improbable 88-81 win. I didn't see that final segment coming, I'm honest here. So really, kudos to these guys for finding a way to shut the door against a veteran, talented SHU team. Quite frankly, spent most of the game lighting them up, to the tune of 51% overall, 50% from 3, led by Gallette's 20 and 10. Iona's offense, which really struggled in the first half outside of Treatu, found its balance behind better ball movement in the second half. And for the game, Iona made 48% overall, 14 of 28 from 3. Got to work on the free throw shooting, though, just 12 of 4 from the line. It was no doubt Treatu's day, as he was 7 of 12 from 3 en route to that 34 spot. Weza Panzo also started to find the range after going 0 for 5 against Charleston, made 4 of 10 from 3 for 12 points, and Brown's late push wrapped up a stat sheet filling night for him. It's 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals. And how about the Frosh again? Adewale started to come onto his own in this one. 8 points, 9 rebounds, 3 blocks. Quigley had 9 points and 4 assists. It wasn't Greg Gordon's night. He was in foul trouble throughout, and he had 8 points in 13 minutes, which is nice, but he only played 13 minutes. Got to keep him on the floor. But again, this is one of those performances you're going to see. The team is still coming together, playing several freshmen in the rotation. It's a recipe for uneven play. The DMs are receiving during the game are alarming. If you think this team is just going to roll over everyone from day one, you don't have an understanding of what this process is. Just chill and relax. Let's try to avoid #ledge life for a while. I mean, sure, with under 4 to play, I wasn't sure we were going to find a way. And I wasn't thrilled about it either. But as the cliche goes, you gotta trust the process. and this team took a major step last night in my eyes, collectively finding a way to get over the top in a tough spot when they really didn't play well throughout. Now I'm going to present to you the full press conference from last night with the Don, Weza, and Coach Tobin.
Don, just take me through this night. Got going early in the first half and you were able to hold it into the second. What did they show you out there that allowed you to take advantage?
I mean, coming to the game, we had a game plan for them. Obviously, it didn't start off how we wanted to. It was a real close game, but my teammates, in all honesty, man, we play in practice every day. They know the type of player I am, and they just got me open. So, a lot of things what we do offensively, but it's credit to my teammates and JB, Wes, and they gotta respect those dudes. So it got me open.
The way this game went, you just kind of had a feeling it was always going to go down to the wire. But then, the last 4 minutes, you guys kind of almost like grew up as a team. Tell me about how that went.
I mean, this just reminds us of practice. In practice, we do get a stop, we can get a score. So we just thought about that. We came together. We said, we do this every day in practice. So let's do this again, lock in, and get this win.
Does it feel good to get a couple threes in?
Finally. Finally. I feel good now.
To follow that up, what was Tobin's message to you guys down the stretch where they were up 6, up 4 in the final 5-6 minutes, and what allowed you guys to come together and lock down on defense?
Tobin, he really just said it's a long game. There's a lot of time. Game's not over. Don't give up. So there's one thing he always says is don't blink. So I think that's what we did. We didn't blink. We just kept going until the end of the buzzer.
How is it for you coming in from Stetson, getting here to Iona in this atmosphere?
It's crazy. I never really had an atmosphere like this where all the fans are really engaged and the fan base is amazing. So just to have everybody here, people watching the game is really important, especially for home court advantage. It works a lot.
And how's it for you coming in from Harvard, being here? Did you play here when Harvard was here last year?
I did play here. Crowd was exactly the same. We actually played them the first home game as well, and the crowd was rocking like this. Was part of the thought process when coming to Iona. I knew that the crowd and the home court advantage and the rich history that Iona has was going to be a big part of our culture here. So yeah.
For both of you, to play Charleston so close Monday night and have a shot to win it at the buzzer, how much confidence did that give you guys going into tonight?
I mean, we felt that we were gonna go in there and win, so we were mad about that. Obviously, tonight we were confident in our game plan, but we didn't execute at the beginning, so that hurt us. But I feel like our whole team is confident. We really know who we are, and we're just trying to get it together. It's a whole new team, so it's gonna go.
How do you feel about the team defensively, and where it's at, and where you need to improve?
I think we're pretty good defensively with the press. We gotta improve our press, obviously. But that team, they played the press style before, so they knew how to kind of play against it. But we definitely have to play harder. I think this is one of the better defensive teams I've played on. So I think we're gonna keep on improving.
Very good.
Don, with 10 days off now until you guys play again, what do you think needs the most work? Like now that you've had 2 games under your belt, what do you think has to be improved the most?
We're gonna, coach, the way coach practices are, we're gonna keep going at it in practice 100%. There's no, kind of going through the motions, trying to get ready for these games, giving each other rest now. Like we're going 100% in practice. There's obviously things that we need to work on that show tonight. Credit to that team, man. They played hard. They hit big time shots. But we have to be together on the defensive end. I think most importantly, offense is gonna figure itself out. I think in the press we gotta stay solid. Maybe less gambling, but that's all gonna come together as we play together more.
It seemed like Sacred Heart was able to handle your pressure most of the night, but I was curious if you guys thought that the constant pressure, the constant press all night kind of wore them out a little bit, and the final stretch would help you guys take the lead in the closing minutes.
Yeah.
That's something you guys might have noticed?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we've been here for 5 months now. We've been doing a lot of conditioning. Coach is big on being in shape. We're going to be the best shape team. So just pressing them is going to wear them down until the final score, and it shows.
So how about Joel Brown being able to make the 2 scores when you're trailing by a point? You got the kind of finger roll, and then you got the 3-point shot from the top of the key.
I mean, Joel's a veteran guard, man. He played in the Pac-12 for 4 years. I think he played 122 of his 125 games, some crazy stat like that. that's somebody we count on, man. He's the leader. He's the point guard of this team, and we rally behind Joel. He's a dog, and I told him, and when he hit that shot, I said, you like that, man. You like that. Like, we needed that.
Especially with me, I've been playing with Joel my whole life, so that's always been my point guard. So I have the most confidence in him, and he's going to make plays down the stretch.
And how is it just putting this team together from all different parts of the country, a whole new roster coming together? How is it to blend the team together?
I mean, obviously this is our first 2 games, and, nothing's going to click like that, but we've been together for 5 months, 5 hard, long months in the summer, practicing every day, going hard, and we're with each other 24/7. So while this is a new team, I think we have a pretty good feel for each other and the camaraderie. But it's going to take some time. Obviously, it's not going to happen like that overnight. But hopefully by game 5, you'll see the difference with the play style.
Well, it's the same question. How is it bringing this group of players together and making it gel?
It's really great because, I mean, we've been together for a short time, but it feels like I've known these guys for years. Like everybody, we're so close together. We bond together. Like you said, we're always together. So, and we go through a lot of adversity. We build our own adversity in practice and through the summer. So that just made us closer together.
Ivan, when's the last time you scored 34 points in an official game?
High school, man.
High school.
High school, but yeah, high school.
Yeah, that's all.
All right, thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
I think start with just an opening statement about thoughts on the game.
Yeah, it was good to get a win. Found a way to get a win. Proverbial, just what do they call it? They took victory from the jaws of defeat. I mean, I thought we were dead in the water most of the game. We found a way to get a win. I got the guys played well down the stretch. We've been good like both games. I will say this: we've been good down like the last 4 minutes of both the last 2 games. Have been very good as far as making plays and execute. And I thought Joel Brown had a shaky start and played really well like the last 4 minutes. I thought Iona played well. We got hurt on the glass. We got hurt. Our depth was not as good. And I jumped him pretty hard. I thought our preparation. It's hard. I think game 2 is the hardest game because game 1 you're excited for. You're fired up. You're all down in Charleston. The place is packed. We didn't have the same kind of life to us before the game and things like that. But we found a way to get a win. So much better to win that game and move on than to get beat. So no, I'm happy with the win. We'll learn from it. This team's got to learn a lot, and we're gonna get better. So we'll take it.
Tobin, after the U4, the rapid maturation of this team, what can you say about that after how they fought back against Charleston Monday night and then the same thing here tonight?
Yeah, we showed some guts, right? I mean, we showed some guts. I thought guys, our backs were against the wall a little bit. I mean, we were at a certain point, we're down 6 or 7. Like we don't make a run at that point, we're beat. So I thought our guys showed a little bit of guts, a little bit of toughness. We're not good enough right now because we're all new to not be that way all the time. I thought at Charleston we were that way for 40 minutes. But on our 2 scrimmages we were too. Tonight we kind of like eased into the game a little bit, and we got ourselves in trouble. And with that being said, Sacred Heart's a good team. They're an experienced team, one of the oldest teams in the country. We knew they came in with a chip on their shoulder, and I thought they played well. And quite frankly, deserved to win. I told that to Anthony. I said, I think you guys, their head most of the game, deserved to win, but we were able to get it done. So we're going to get a lot better. This team will improve more probably than any team that I've ever had, and probably any team in the country, just because no guy on our team had played in Hines until tonight. It's the first time those guys all be in there in Hines, and so I think it was just something new for them. We'll get better.
Sully is such a different player from Oz. Do you think it's just taken them a while to get used to not having Oz out there, just the different style of play that the two guys bring?
They're two totally different guys. I thought he actually did a lot of good things tonight. He blocked some shots, he rebounded, he was physical. In the way we had it playing, Sully's playing 8 or 10 minutes off the bench, and he's playing a role, and he comes in, he gives us energy and toughness, and now he's being asked to do a lot. I mean, we had to switch ball screens the last 8 minutes of the game. He guarded guards pretty well. He listens well. He picks up things. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is, right? I mean, he's got to do more than we probably wanted him to do initially. But I thought he played pretty well. I watched the tape, but I thought he played pretty well. But yeah, he's different. He's not a perimeter guy at all. He can't make a 3. So it's like he's got to bang. He's got to be physical. I thought Saunders came off the bench and gave us some good minutes the first half. He's more like Oz. He's just not physically ready right now. And Isaac Bryce the same way. Those guys they're going to get better, We get 10 days off here. Thank God we get a chance to go back to work and get better for Florida.
You always say you press for the entire game. That's your style. But when tonight, where Sacred Heart didn't seem to have, for much of the night, a problem with your press, You just keep playing it anyway, but maybe in a way it wore them out a little bit for those final 4-minute rally.
Yeah, I thought the press of the first half was a disaster. You know, it was a layup drill. You know, and like, but that's what we do. And so, like, we're not going to abandon what we do. We're going to have to get better at it. You know, and so I mean, maybe that's stubborn. Maybe that's you know, we pressed two scrimmages in Charleston, and we were fantastic. And then tonight it wasn't them, it was us. We didn't have any energy. You know, I mean, why was the press better the second half? Well, there was a whole lot more energy with how we played. So, yeah, I'm with you, Jim. I thought about 10 minutes going that first half, we should stop pressing and just go back and play half-court defense. But, you know, I also think with a new team, if you start, you know, abandoning ship and bailing out and trying to do something else, you're going to find yourself in trouble. And we're thinking long term here. You know, obviously getting the win was huge, right? But we're also thinking about how's this team get better. And it's like, hey, we're not going to just abandon ship because you guys don't want to play with the effort that we need. We have to learn how to play that way, you know? And I thought we eventually got to that point, and they were a little bit tired at the end. But, you know, JB had a huge, we call it a back tip. He came from behind, tipped the ball. It was a great play. We could do that in the first half, too. That's allowed in the first half as well. So, but no.
Talk about Joe Brown kind of leading that rally in the final minutes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I took him out to start the first 2 minutes of the second half. I thought it was terrible, and I told him that. You know, and he's a great kid. He's an unbelievable kid. He wants to do well. And so I took him out, and I was on him pretty hard. Like, I mean, Joel's not a great, and he actually hit some shots down the stretch. Not a great offensive player. He's got to lead with his defense, his toughness, his getting loose balls, things like that, which he wasn't doing. And then to his credit, he came back and he played great down the stretch. So, you know, I think mental toughness is like when you're having a bad night, finding a way, no matter what happens, to play well when it's needed. I thought for his mental toughness to play great, you know, I thought Edon was pretty good tonight too. Like, when it got tough, those guys, they played well. Now, for us to win and win big, we got to be better for 40 minutes, but I thought they played well when we had to, you know? Yeah.
For 35 minutes, it seemed like you couldn't get a second guy to step up. Greg fouls out. Joel and Weza came on down the stretch for them to pick up Edon and not let his night go to waste. What does that say about the supporting cast?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're deep, you know, and we weren't able to showcase that depth tonight because, you know, there were some guys who didn't play as well as we thought. We want to go 9 or 10 deep, right? If we're not going 9 or 10 deep, it's because somebody in that rotation is not giving us what we need out of those guys, right? So had a kind of short rotation, which put a lot of pressure on Edon. Edon played a lot of minutes tonight. What did he play? He played a ton of minutes. Him and Wes played a lot of minutes. Like, that's too many minutes. 32. Like, it's hard to play that way. We pressed the whole time. But I thought JQ was pretty good at times. I thought he was good. You know, Gene's got to be more aggressive. Gene's got to try to score a little bit more. I think he's content right now to be, you know, I've coached 3 Venezuelan kids, and they're wonderful kids, and they always want everybody else to score and have fun. And it's like what's the government over there? It's a I lost my mind. It's a everybody gets everything, right? Gene's like, hey, let's, you know, points for you. Gene, go.
Socialist.
Oh, yeah, socialist. There we go, right? Like, Gene, go score, man. Go play plays. We're like, Gene, go do something. Like he wants to just make everybody else happy. So as time goes on, he'll be a little more aggressive. So, and that will help us. But, like, you know, Alex Bates got to give us more minutes. Those guys will all get better, you know?
Coach, Iden treat out 34 points. Is that the kind of game you want him to have for you?
I thought he was terrific as far as, like, he got a great movement in the second half. He forced a little bit early on in the first half, but I thought he moved well. He cut well. We've asked him to change a little bit. He wants to go sometimes off the dribble too much, where he's more of a catch and shoot guy. He was a great catch and shoot guy tonight. He's got to learn how to play without the ball. Yeah, he was, and in big shots too. Made big plays. He defended too. Like, you know, it's amazing how your defense a lot of times will get your offense going. I thought that was his best defensive effort he's had all year. So that got his offense going.
Is it fair to say he had a calming effect on the team tonight? I kind of thought that.
Edon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah. We kind of need a little bit of life. He gave us a little bit of life in the second half. There's a point where he was like, really, you know, if our guys are not exhausted and, like, needing to come out, like we say, we get a fist in the air. We always say, if you get tired, get a fist up. Right? If we don't see fist in the air, we're not playing very hard. I thought at halftime, not enough guys were sweating. Yeah. I was sweating. No one else was sweating, right? So it's like when it was in Charleston, we were exhausted, right? So we got to get to that point where we play that hard all the time. And I thought he got us going with his energy. I told him that too. And that kind of was a little bit contagious. Weza was good. I thought Weza was great. Like, I don't know what Wez shot. What did Wez shoot from 3?
4 of 10.
Yeah, so I mean, he didn't make. I mean, he's going to make. I mean, that guy makes shots. He's not shot the ball great so far, but I think he's doing a lot of other things. He's defending. He's talking. He's leading, which is really good. You know, and, like, listen, the reality is, you know, Greg Gordon's one of our best players. He didn't have it tonight. You know, I was trying to get Greg and he didn't get any foul. Like we needed like a good 4 or 5 minute spurt from him. He just couldn't get to that spurt. And with him not being great, like Iona had to play well, Wes had to play well, and they did, which is good. And JB played well.
You mentioned Gene and JQ, the plays that they made on defense in the final minute. What can you say about their effort and how they've thrown off?
Yeah, I love those guys, man. They're great. They're great. And they've really, you know, as freshman guards, and we've played, like I said, we've scrimmaged 2 A-10 teams. We played down at Charleston. We played tonight. Like, they haven't blinked. They haven't batted an eye. They've been mature. They've handled things well, especially JQ. He turned it over at one point. I said, JQ, back in high school, you go score 30. I said, stop being so damn passive and go make plays. So he's got to make plays. I think he made a shot down the stretch, but he got laid out in the basket, made a good play. So, yeah, I like those two a lot. And as time goes on, with Joel Brown and Edon and then JQ and Gene, those 4 guards should be like interchangeable, you know? And we'll play 3 of them together at a certain point, you know? So yeah, we're a work in progress, as you can plainly see.
You must be frustrated with the free throw shooting tonight, obviously.
What was the free throw shooting?
12 of 24. All right.
We were 12 for 24? Jeez. You know, I shot in college. I was a hell of a free throw shooter. Maybe it was time for a free throw clinic where I actually help show guys how to shoot free throw. I couldn't guard anybody. I couldn't do anything else, but I could shout free throws. So I didn't know it was 12 for 24.
You got a big break coming up. You can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll work on our free throw
Challenge them.
shooting. Yeah, I tried to work. Yeah, we missed a bunch. Now I think about it, we missed a bunch. Like you was a couple down the stretch. So you know, yeah, we'll have to work on that. We actually shot some free throws, which is good. We didn't shoot many in Charleston, but we shot some free throws. So
Coach, is there a personality you really want this team to adapt, or a style that you want them to be at?
Yeah, like tough, punch in the face. You know, go after people, like be aggressive. I thought we were just too passive to start the game tonight. Like we came out like we got the lead, but it didn't feel like we imposed our will. It's like you said, Jim. Like we felt like they kind of like handled our pressure well, handled stuff pretty well. Like their defense kind of bothered us. So I thought at Charleston, we got beat by Charleston, but we imposed our will down there. We did not do that tonight. We did not impose our will how we want to play. So I want to be tough, aggressive, you know, going at people. I didn't think we were like we should be able to go. We did this at Charleston. Play hard for 3 or 4 minutes. The next guys come in. We almost go to our bench and get better. You know, our bench, because those guys are fresh and they're ready to go. That didn't really happen tonight. So we're gonna work on that. We'll get better.
How'd you like your first game in Hines?
I loved it. That was awesome. The crowd was incredible. The fans were incredible. The students were great. I mean, the place was packed. So hopefully they'll come back and keep encouraging us and keep playing like that. We're gonna get better too. But I thought like the last 3 or 4 minutes, the place was rocking. It was awesome. You know, so you know, we'd like to make it a little bit less stressful for me and my family, but otherwise it was awesome. But no, a great crowd, great turnout.
We were stressed too, just
Listen, I'm exhausted. As Matt knows, I was at the cross country thing today. I must have ran 4 miles today trying to watch the cross country team at the regionals down there. So I was maybe a little bit burnt out for that. My energy was probably not as good as it should have been either. So I'll have to get more rest on game days.
Putting right back in with 7:30 to go, is that in line with how you would typically play it, or was it just trying to do something?
Yeah, like we got a little bit of trouble. We almost like backs against the wall. We had him, and he wasn't, you know, he was not playing well. So it's kind of like the longer you sit, sometimes the worse it gets. So it's like, listen, give him a chance. Maybe he starts playing well. And he makes a run for us, because him sitting here, he's just getting cold. He was kind of out of it a little bit. So you know, I thought he got his 3rd foul at the start of the second half. It was a bad one. And like all of a sudden, you're he's got to come out for a while, and that really hurt us. So it hurt him. You know, he's got to adjust. It's all new. He's at Dyersburg Junior College last year. You know, he can do whatever he wanted to there for the most part. He's got to adjust to games, and like now he played well at Charleston. Well, teams are going to game plan for him and try to take certain things away, and he's going to have to adjust to that. You know, but no, I like to play guys even when they're in foul trouble. Sometimes I wouldn't say 4 with 7:30 to go. In a great world, we get to the last media timeout. He played like the last 4 minutes, but he wasn't. You know, it was kind of like we had to get him a chance to do something. You know, but yeah, he'll get better.
Coach, I'm going to ask you a couple weeks ago. You're not going to have Shema and Gordon for your first home opener. You probably thought you were going to be a tough night.
Yeah, right. I mean, we miss Oz. I mean, Oz is like so special because he's so smart. I mean, Oz, and you can just tell at halftime he was irritated. So. Yeah, it's not ideal. You know, there's not one guy who'd been in Hines before in a whole brand new team, but that's not our. You know, we got to get better. We have enough weapons here to be a good team. So we're, you know, and like I think it's a great opportunity for us to get better. And then when Oz comes back, you know, the guys who are playing more minutes now, Sully, Saunders, Isaac Bryce, should get. And we're going to need those guys in Florida. We're going to play 3 games in 3 days down in Florida and go to Colorado 2 days later. So 4 games in 6 days. We're going to need those guys to play, and that should help us in the long run when Oz gets back. Because we only had Oz for a half against Fordham. It was a lot more fun with Oz out there. So, but it is
He
part of
has a lot in the press, right?
the press, the offense. I mean, he's so smart. He runs so hard. He knows what to do. He talks. I mean, you wouldn't believe it. Oz talks a lot on the court. He's like a point center. I mean, it's amazing. Like we didn't know how good he was until the Fordham scrimmage. We're like, man, he does a lot of stuff for us. So, and like he's picked up how we play. Like, I mean, he knows everything. So, but the reality is he's out for a while, and it ain't the end of the world. All guys got to step up, and I think we've shown signs, but we need more.
What's the focal point in the next 10 days as you get ready for that trip?
Just do what we do. Like we got to be. Our press. Our press has been really good in the first. Like I said, 2 scrimmages and one and the game at Charleston. And like it wasn't tonight. It's got to get back to being that good all the time. Our press makes us different. And then our half court defense could be a little bit better there too. I thought we got hurt like the last. What was the rebound? I haven't checked the stats. Close. Yeah. I mean, I think they hurt us some big offensive boards. That's got to get a little bit better.
38 to 37.
Yeah. And with Charleston we're -1. So I think pressing how we press, developing some of those young guys to play bigger minutes, and then I thought offense was a little bit stagnant at times. Got to work on our offense, but how we play is different. It's just like how our system is. It takes more time. So and patience is not one of my strong points. So I'm having to learn a lot of patience. But I mean I'm exhausted. I got to be honest with you. So we'll. I need tomorrow off, so we're gonna get better though. I love this team. I like this team a lot. I think this team has a chance to. We have a tremendous heart. I mean, even tonight's win, like it wasn't pretty. We probably didn't deserve to win, but like they got a lot of heart to make plays down the stretch to find a way to get that win. So that's special. So we can be a really good team.
Well, that's one.
Yeah, you told me 3 weeks ago. I asked you what you thought about the Charleston game, and you said you went down there and you really played well, and it was a close game that it really bodes well for the team. You did that without Oz. How are you feeling now about the team?
When I walked out of Charleston, I said to my staff, we've been together for a long time, I said, we're going to be in trouble on Friday. Because let's be honest. I mean, it's on social media. Wow, Iona played great. They played great. They looked good, better than they thought they were going to be. Everybody said the same thing. They looked really good. That they all read that stuff, right? So it's like, and I said, human nature is to relax and feel good and like, hey, we got this thing. We're going to be great. We don't even know how good Charleston is, right? So I think I beat Duquesne. So it's like it's such a new season. So a mature team, and we're mature as far as we have some old guys, but we're not mature together. Would have come in today and been like, hey, we got to take care of business and have the same energy. We didn't have that, but I think we're going to learn that as time goes along. So I knew we were in trouble walking out of Charleston tonight. Because I saw everybody's patting us on the back and like, you guys are doing great and saying nice things about me, which I don't mind, but you have to handle it the right way. I'm also older. I can handle that kind of stuff. My wife thinks the team's great. My wife thinks we're going to the Final Four. I mean, everybody's got to just take a deep breath and calm down.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach.
Good? All right, guys. Great to see everybody.
I'm excited to be heading to Florida for the Gulf Coast Showcase. Let's preview the tournament, shall we? We take our normal look at High Point, a little more dialed back previews of Long Beach State and Illinois State, who would be our opponents in the second round, and we'll touch on the other 4 teams on the other side of the bracket as well. Let's dig in. We all know Iona hit the portal pretty hard. So did High Point, taking on 7 transfers. So that team that went 14 and 17 a year ago, I forget about them. It's a new roster. It's a new head coach in Alan Muss. The Panthers were picked 7th in the Big South preseason poll this year. Duke Miles is the player to watch. The transfer from Troy is a 6'3" junior guard who averaged 14 points and shot 47% from 3 last year. Sound familiar, Weza? Of note, though, Miles didn't participate in HPU's exhibition win over Division III Pfeiffer or in their actual first game against NAIA school St. Andrews. Maybe he has a minor injury and they figured they'd rest him against those kinds of opponent. Who knows? Their D1 opener is today at Wofford, and they have another game at Queens U in Charlotte, so we'll see his status in those games. Anyway, as I said, they hit the portal hard. It brought in some weapons of note. Most notably Trey Benham, a 6'4 junior guard from Lipscomb who averaged 6.6 points, and Liam McChesney from Illinois State, 6'9 grad forward who averaged 6.5 points. The one key holdover is sophomore guard Abdullahi Tiem, 6'4", averaged 13.6 points, 4.1 boards. So this is a team that wasn't great last year, has a lot of new pieces this year, and who knows, perhaps their best player is not even going to dress. Feels like this is a game we should win. They do have deceptive talent from what I can tell, and like us, they should be better later in the year. But we should be able to find a way to survive this one in my eyes, especially with 10 days to prepare. Win or lose, Iona will be taking on either Long Beach State or Illinois State in the next round, the next day, and either team presents a challenge. Hindered by injuries last year, Long Beach enters this year picked second in the Big West preseason bowl, and they've got a solid quartet to contend with. We start with a couple Traore junior forwards. Abu Bakar Traore is an all Big West honorable mention selection last year, and junior forward Lassina Traore, the reigning Big West newcomer of the year, and he's a first teamer, were both picked all Big West preseason first team this year. The two were the top rebounders in the league last season. Lassina grabbed 10.5 boards a game to go along with his 12.9 points per contest. Abu Bakar pulled down 8.8 boards a game with 10.1 points and 3.5 assists per contest. Backcourt's loaded too. Senior guard Marcus Tsahanis, who set the Long Beach State single-game scoring record with 46 points in a win at UC San Diego, and junior guard Jaden Jones, the 2021-22 Big West Defensive Player of the Year, who also averaged 8 points per game, will be fun. They also have Alabama A&M transfer Messiah Thompson. He's just 5'8", but he makes 41% from three, and 6'6" sophomore AJ George, who averaged 8.6 points and made 41% from three as well. Solid bunch here. This is going to be a test for us if we get to them. How's Long Beach State done so far? Well, their lone game thus far was at Portland, where they were a 3-point favorite and fell 78-73, so a touch of a surprise there. Jones had 23, Tsahanis had 17, Abu Bakar Traore had 16, 9, and 5 in the loss. And they've got 3 really tough games in a row to come before they even get to Florida. At DePaul tonight, at San Diego State Tuesday, and at Michigan Friday. Wow. So they'll be battle tested when they get to Florida, let's just say. All right, we now shift to Missouri Valley, where Illinois State was picked 8th in the 12-team high-mid conference. Here, senior guard Darius Burford is the one to watch, preseason All-MVC third team, 13 points per game. They also have 6'8 forward Kendall Lewis. He averaged 11 and 7. And here's a name from the past, Monmouth transfer Miles Foster, whom the Gales were reportedly pursuing in the portal. He'll be in Illinois State's starting lineup probably. 6'7 senior forward, averaged 12 and 5 and 6.6 last year for the Hawks. Illinois State hosted NAI school Lords to open the season, a 19-point win, and play their first Division I game tonight against an old friend of ours, St. Louis. They'll also host Eastern Washington on Wednesday before getting to Florida. So all told, Long Beach State should win this quarterfinal matchup, and we should be able to find a way to survive High Point. But that semifinal is going to be a tough one for sure, and if we find ourselves in that loser's bracket, that won't be a cakewalk either. The other side of the bracket has Louisiana taking on Wright State and Hofstra taking on Buffalo. Good name mids here, so it's certainly not a slouch of a tournament by any stretch. Not going to dive into all of these teams in huge detail since we're only going to face one of them, but we'll touch on each one, hitting on where they were picked in their league, their best player, and what they've done to date thus far. We'll start with Louisiana. They were picked 5th in the Sun Belt preseason poll. Their guy to watch will be Themis Folks, junior point guard. He averaged 9 points and 6 assists last year per game. They opened the year with a 72-62 win at home against Youngstown State, and Folks had 20 points, 7 assists in the game. So they look pretty good. Wright State was picked 3rd in the Horizon, and they have the league's preseason player of the year in Trey Calvin, a 6-foot grad guard who scored 20 points per game and shot 39% from three last year. Wright State did not get off to the start they were hoping for, though. They were absolutely mauled at Colorado State, 105-77, despite 33 from Calvin. The Buffalo Bills were picked. The Buffalo Bulls were picked 9th in the Mid-American preseason poll. The player to watch here is 6'6" guard, senior guard, Isaiah Adams. He averaged 12 points and 5 assists last year. I'm sorry, 5 rebounds. And Buffalo, though, was upset at home by, FDU to open the season 92. They lost 92 to 86. Adams had 28, 8, and 5 in the loss. Finally, we have a team that we will see later, and we'll certainly dive into more at that time. But let's touch on them now anyway, and that's Hofstra. We know Charleston was picked first in the CAA. Hofstra not too far behind, picked fourth. Tyler Thomas is that dude for the Pride. The grad 6'3" guard averaged 16.5 points and shot over 40% from three last year. Hofstra fell in their only game against a D1 foe thus far, losing at home to a really good Princeton team, 74 to 67. Like I said, we're going to get into them a lot more when we play them for sure, but just wanted to give you a little taste. All in all, this side of the bracket's a little bit of a crapshoot. It feels like Hofstra may be the best team out of the four, but in this sort of setting, strange things can and have happened, so who knows. And looking at the entire bracket, I don't think there's a bad team in this entire tournament, honestly. They all have potential, certainly. But there's also no team that's purely great. I think Long Beach and Hofstra are the safest bets to reach the finals, but certainly that doesn't mean the Gales can't do it. With 10 days to prepare, Iona will hopefully fix a few things, and then with 3 games in 3 days, expect to see everyone get their share of run. It's also going to be a growth opportunity for sure for this team, and hopefully the Gales can get out of Fort Myers with at least 2 wins. So I know we've got Florida on our minds, but we're also keeping an eye on our fellow MAAC brethren, and we've seen some interesting results in the league thus far. But I wanted to make sure we gave you a good feel for what we should be a really fun and balanced MAAC season. And who better to provide that feel than the one and only Jaden Daly. I will note that we did record this before any MAAC teams played any real games, so no results we've seen thus far were factored into our discussions. Hey, Jaden's a busy guy. I wanted to get him on while I could. So here's that convo as Jaden and I take a look at every team in the MAAC. Enjoy. So it's not Iona basketball season around here until we've heard from the one and only Jaden Daly from DalyDoseOfHoops. If you didn't hear the Twitter space that was hosted by Pete Janney and Fairfield Frank back on November 1st, Jaden and I both made guest appearances, and it was Jaden, not me, but Jaden went on for a couple minutes about how happy he is that Tobin Anderson is the basketball coach at Iona University and not that guy who jumped to Jamaica at halftime of the UConn game. Jaden, welcome back to the podcast, and I want to give you the floor for a moment to reiterate some of those thoughts that you shared on that Twitter space about Tobin.
Well, Guy, thank you so much for always having me on. And yeah, after the last 3 years where you and I and just about everybody else who considers themselves Iona media really didn't get much from an access standpoint, from a press conference standpoint, it's just refreshing to have a guy who knows our names, a guy who is committed to upholding the tradition, knows what he's walking into, and is building it along with everyone from every walk of life, be it players, assistant coaches, alumni, season ticket holders, donors, boosters, what have you. I feel like I'm covering Tim in 2011 again when I first started covering the MAAC, and it's not a slight to Rick Pitino. It's just a different demeanor that Tobin Anderson has exuded, and I think this season's going to be a very good one by the end of it for Iona. It might not go as planned early on with so many new pieces and unknown variables that need to be worked out and tested in live game situations, but I think over time you're going to see a product that Iona fans are going to be very happy with and very satisfied to uphold its winning ways.
Yeah, and I've told this story to people in person and on this podcast. You know, for 3 years we covered that guy in Jamaica, and he didn't know our names. And you know, in 2 weeks after Tobin got the job, he was on this podcast, and I had his cell phone number. It's just a different climate. I know the Iona Athletic Office is thrilled with the changes And it's just the energy that Tobin exudes and the positivity and the very happy to be at Iona vibe is a real one compared to the fake one we just endured. I do want to note for all the listeners that we are recording this prior to any games being played, even though this is going to be airing after the Gales have played a couple of games. So none of what you're going to be hearing will have been influenced by any early Iona or MAAC results. So I just want to let everybody know that, Jaden gets awfully busy. So I wanted to grab him before we actually everybody tipped off on November 6th. So that actually may be better though, in a way, because this way we're not overhauling any predictions or projections for anyone based on a game or two from early results. But I will say this, at the time of this recording, Jaden and I do have a leg up on most of the Iona universe in that we were able to attend a practice back in August. So we got a taste of what to expect from this team. Jaden, before we dive into your MAAC picks, what were some of the thoughts after seeing that practice back in August?
Well, having met Tobin Anderson in March and seeing how his FDU team operated when I covered an NEC quarterfinal across the river in Hackensack, I got a similar vibe to how he wants his Iona team to look and operate from that FDU team that obviously went on to make history and be the second number 16 seed to beat a 1 in the NCAA tournament when they beat Purdue. But you're going to see an up-tempo attack, maybe a little smaller than you're accustomed to from the 3 years of Pitino and some of the later Tim Cluse years. But you're looking at a team that is very versatile, very interchangeable. You could see a guy like Brett Gordon playing a small ball 4 at times. I think he'll be one of the leading rebounders. I want to see more of how Osborne Shema might be used. I think he can play inside and outside this year, which is going to be very good for Iona, maybe not so good for the rest of the MAAC. Wes Panzo is a great shooter. I liked what I saw from him in practice. I think Edon Tritu and Joel Brown are going to be similar to AJ English and Sean Armand and how they ran the floor and defended on the other end as well. They might not have the production that AJ and Sean had, both averaging 20 points a game or close to it, but they're doing things that affect winning and improve the team's bottom line. And you got to love that in year one with so many new pieces, all but one player on the roster, just having come in over the last 6 months.
Yeah, and of course that's the question that we've been asking Tobin since he got the job: is how do you rebuild this? How do you start over? How do you just put all these pieces together? How do you get them into a cohesive unit and start playing games? We saw some uneven results even in the scrimmages. I thought the result at Fordham, tying Fordham is a pretty good result given where Fordham is right now. As much as we Iona fans like to poke fun at their history, we're a pretty solid team entering this year, predicted to be top half of the A10. So to go there and tie them, it was a great result. The UMass result wasn't as impressive. UMass actually picked lower in the A10, but Iona was also a little banged up for that one. Hopefully we are healthy as the season gets going here, especially because we did talk about how challenging the non-conference schedule is going to be. And you certainly don't want to see, a poor record, come out, and it's going to make a lot of people second guess some stuff. So hopefully we are healthy and can grow as a team. But obviously, as we've seen in some projections, people do expect us to be right there in the thick of the MAAC race. And so I think it's a great time now to get into that. A couple episodes ago, you guys all heard the MAAC picks on this podcast. I was down in Atlantic City. And now we get to hear Jaden Daly's variances. There are quite a few variances from what he's got and what the MAAC coaches picked. So we're going to go in reverse order. There is one, we do have one pick that was exactly right, equal, and that was the Manhattan Jaspers. But, we do have one result that we can talk about here a little bit to maybe show that maybe we're all kind of poo-pooing the MAAC a bit this year. But I got news for you. After watching the St. Joe's game, if Manhattan's the worst team in the MAAC, this league might be pretty good.
Yeah, it looks batshit crazy on paper, but the parity in this league, Guy, you mentioned it on the space, and Pete and Frank, who are normally on our panel, broke away and did their own this past week. But if there's one year that you get that 11-way tie at 10-10, it could be this year. But yeah, I didn't get to see the Manhattan exhibition game. I was on the way to Seton Hall NJIT in Newark, so I'm only going off the live stats. But very encouraging signs for John Gallagher and the Jaspers. I do want to see how they look early in the year. They could be good, they could be not so good, but that goes for every team, that goes for every MAAC team. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to say, though, that Manhattan is playing with house money this season. Not much is expected of them, so anything they get over the mean is gravy for them.
Yeah, and I think that is going to be a theme as we go up the line here and look at the rest of the teams. Is there's going to be a lot of uneven performances. There's going to be some performances where teams just look great, and then others where you're just scratching your head like, well, they didn't show up tonight, and that's gonna go from Manhattan all the way up to the top teams, as we'll get to. Okay, so that way we each everybody had a Manhattan as an 11th. That's just kind of by default, I think, for a lot of people, given what happened there. You have Marist 10th. The MAAC had them 8th, so pretty similar. So no real faith that even with Brickner, that the Foxes are going to be making any rise in the standings.
It's just so hard to replace a guy like Patrick Gardner in this conference, guy. And as much as I love John Dunn, as much as I know he can use the run to the championship game last season as a foundation, Marist just hasn't proven it the last several years. And we saw how difficult it was when JD got the job, and then in year 2 had to replace Brian Parker. It was a very long year for Marist, and I think you're going to see the same thing when you have a 7-footer who's playing in the G League now, leaving a huge void in the middle. I don't know if Isaiah Brickner can make that jump yet as a sophomore. I don't know what the front court's going to look like. There are a lot of unknowns in Poughkeepsie, and I guess it's blind faith in John Dunn that most of this conference knows what they're getting from him, that they're ranked a little higher, but I need to see it.
Okay. St. Peter's, you have them at 9th. The MAAC has them at 10th. I have them around, I think I have them around 9th as well. But I also believe in their coaching. So, I think I do like some of their pieces too. But again, that's one of those teams that it's going to make you scratch their head. What do you think about St. Peter's?
Yeah, it's very hard to look at Bashir Mason's track record with 3 NEC championship game appearances at Wagner in 10 years and dismiss it. But he's got a big mountain to climb. Isaiah Dasher has graduated, so you don't know who his leading scorer is going to be. Corey Washington might make a jump. Shaheem Tanksley, their junior college point guard that was supposed to come in and be one of the leading scorers, is out for the year now. He broke his leg. So I'm very interested to see how they overcome that. Latrell Reed has to improve on both sides of the floor. If you've heard Sam Fetterman in any of our spaces, you know the passion that he has for Reed and his product, or lack thereof.
Yeah.
But I do think St. Peter's is a transitional team this season, in that they're still a year away from being a year away, if that makes sense.
Okay. So next one is kind of one of those teams that looks like they could be in the top half of the league, but then their situation may have changed that potential a bit. In Fairfield, you've got them 8th. The MAAC had them 6th. I had them, I think, 7th. I really didn't believe in Jay Young, so I don't think it's going to matter that much that he's not there. But Fairfield has talent. Your thoughts on the Stags?
Yeah, I don't think the coaching change is going to make as much of a difference with Jay out and Chris Casey being the interim, who we remember from his days at Niagara in the last decade. But I think a lot of it hinges on the health of Alexis Yetna. If he is back before the new year, then that's great for Fairfield. If he's going to miss more time than initially projected, then that's not so good. Fairfield needs to find a consistent scorer, maybe a second consistent scorer alongside Caleb Fields. Kareem Masek, their transfer from New Mexico, is already injured, and he's going to be out for a while. It's going to be a long non-conference season for Fairfield, playing very young up front, and I think that'll take its toll on the freshmen and the sophomores who didn't see much playing time early in the year, which is not good come conference play.
All right. Now we have one of the first where there's a pretty significant variance from what the MAAC came up with and what you have and what I have as well. Siena Saints at 7th. The MAAC picked them 4th. I've got them pretty high as well. I'm all Team Carm, #Team Carm. But you don't see it. Why is that?
Well, that's because I don't know what we're going to get as far as a waiver on Sean Durador. I was basing my Siena pick off the uncertainty. If he gets the waiver, they're a top 5 team, no question. Arm is a winner. We've seen it. It'll come together a lot faster. But if he doesn't get the waiver, Michael Ealy is the only consistent source of offense on this team. So I don't know if Siena can piece it together early and then make a run late. Carm's teams the last couple of years have started out hot and then maybe peaked too early. Mm-hmm. So Siena was a mid-pack team as presently constructed.
Okay. All right. We have another variance here with Canisius. You have him 6th. MAAC had him 3rd. I actually had him a little lower because I really don't believe in Spoon. But I do believe in Taj. What do you think of the Griffs?
Reggie always gets his role players to step up every year. That's the best thing about him. And Canisius was picked 3rd by virtue of bringing just about everything back. They only lose 2 players from last season. Jaco Fritz transferred to Hofstra, and other than that, Tosh Stavesky is back, Xavier Loam's back, TJ Gadsden is back, Trey Dinkins is back. Canisius has pieces. It's just a question of whether or not Reggie can pull it off. The Griffs have not been projected this high in the MAAC in 5 years, when they had to call Molson and Isaiah Reese, and by all accounts should have won the league. Mm-hmm. But that was the year that all hell broke loose in the tournament, and 1, 2, and 3 were already knocked out before Iona took the floor.
That's right. All right. Now the biggest variance we have between your picks and the MAAC poll, and that's Niagara. You've got them 5th. The MAAC has Niagara 9th. I'm more aligned with where you've got them. Why do you have them so high?
Red Paulus has done probably the most underrated, underappreciated job in mid-major college basketball, keeping Niagara in the top half of the conference. He went into the portal and got a lot of experience this season, even as some of his guys transferred or graduated. And I think he just has a handle on his team and his program that nobody else in the conference has right now. That chemistry and that synergy is going to play out very nicely. And he's got a history of getting up transfers from D2, Kobe Nwandu, Aaron Gray, and this year it'll be with Malik Edwards, the NAIA transfer. I think he'll average 15 points a game and be an all-conference guy at year's end. Niagara has a lot of intriguing pieces, and their style of play catches so many teams off guard. Plus, they have one of the best home court advantages in the conference by virtue of everybody else making the Buffalo trip and usually splitting it at the very best.
All right. Now we cracked the top 4, and we have another variance here. Mount St. Mary's, you've got them at number 4. The MAAC has them at 7th. Somewhere in the middle on them. Why so high on Mount St. Mary's?
Well, the way everyone praises John Dunn and Bashir Mason for their past track record, you got to do the same thing with Dan Engelstad. He's only 2 years removed from winning the NEC with Mount St. Mary's, and he's got deceptively strong pieces in George Tinsley and Josh Reeves, in Dola Adebayo and J.D. Cordelia, and also Dakota LaFew, who's the first-team all-conference shooting guard who's back this season. If he had Jalen Benjamin for another year, if he didn't go into the portal, this is a top 2 team in the MAAC. I like the way the Mount plays. The style is perfect for the league, and I think you're going to see this team. Last year, they caught fire at the end after an arduous December and January. You're going to see this team pick some teams off late in the season, and they could go into Atlantic City as a wise guy pick to win it all.
Well, you made a comment about, the portal impacting them. I think we can say that about the entire league, but I digress. Next one up is Quinnipiac. You've got him 3rd. MAAC has him 5th. I actually had him lower than both of those. I'm not a huge believer in Tom Pecora, but you obviously are. Why do you like Tom?
Well, people seem to ignore that Tom Pecora coached Hofstra for 9 years and won in a much tougher league. This was a CAA that had VCU and George Mason in it, and Old Dominion, who was really good too, with Plain Taylor back in the mid-2000s. His resume and his experience is just perfect for the MAAC, and he's inheriting a 20-win team. Jones and Courtright are gone, but he's got pieces. He has Matt Blanc and Savion Lewis, two fifth-year guards. He's got Paul Otieno, who might be the best big in the league, all things considered. And the way he has recruited already, you can see him somewhat reinvigorated. He's out to prove that his 5-year reign of error at Fordham, which was largely due to circumstances beyond his control, was a fluke. I think MAAC is going to be very forwardly placed.
All right, and now we've hit our top two, which is pretty fairly consensus from what we've seen all around. Ryder 1, Iona 2. Let's leapfrog Iona because we'll talk more about the Gales in a minute. But let's go to Ryder. Is this the year that Kevin Baggett breaks through?
I don't know if it's the year, but Ryder has to be the preseason favorite just on the heels of getting Mervyn James and Alan Powell back. When you have two all-conference guys that by default through attrition become two of the 5 best players in the league, you're definitely sitting pretty. I want to see what Tariq Ingram does up front. I think not having Tyrell Bladen, not having Nehemiah Benson is going to be more of a challenge for him. I'd like to see what the Weeks brothers do in the backcourt. DJ Dudley is supposed to be a really good freshman. Ruben Rodriguez, same thing. Corey McKeithen is the veteran point guard who sat behind Dwight Murray and Stevie Jordan. He tore his ACL as a freshman, so he's a fourth year junior, so to speak. I want to see how the bench and the third and fourth pieces come together for Ryder before I make any judgment on them. I picked them number 1 as the safe pick just with James and Powell coming back and with so many unknowns at Iona. It was the easier pick to make, and I admit that.
Okay, so Iona second. A lot of people had Iona still near the top, even despite all the changes. Is it too much faith in Tobin, do you think, nationally, that everybody's just assuming, well, he'll just keep it going there? Is it a little too much faith, or is it maybe just too much Iona tradition of being good? Or do you really think he has the second best team in this league coming in?
I think it's a mixture of all three. I think Tobin's big win in March is part of it. I do think it has less to do with Tobin and more to do with Iona's overall consistency, yes. But I also think it has something to do with what he was able to bring in over 7 months on the job and getting high major talent, getting well-respected incoming freshmen for this level to come into Iona and be a part of something right away and see a decent share of minutes. I think it's a combination of all three. You're always going to have, other than 2006-07 and 07-08, Jeff's last year, Kevin's first year, you're always going to have an Iona team that's going to be not just a tough out, but a team that's most respected in the conference, like it or not. And I think you'll get everybody in the league to admit that, whether they want to or not. Iona is just always there, and that's not a bad thing.
All right. With player of the year, I mean, I think a lot of people were aligned with Mervyn James. I guess you could have gone a couple different directions, but he was the most obvious choice, so there's really nothing to debate there. You did go with Ahmad Henderson from Niagara, Rookie of the Year. I think it's a great choice because you can just see that it's not even just, well, who looks good coming in, who's going to have the opportunity. And I think Henderson's going to have the opportunity. Who else did you have in mind for that, for Rookie of the Year candidates?
Hard to tell because I haven't really seen freshmen, and I usually gauge it off what little recruiting I pay attention to and how much each coach talks them up when I speak to them over the summer. And Greg Paulus mentioned Ahmad Henderson about 4 times in the first 3 minutes with him. Sam told me that he was very explosive in high school at Brother Rice in Chicago, which is a highly respected program out there, to my knowledge. Plus, Paulus has had great guards. He's had Marcus Hammond. He's had Noah Thomason. And I think Henderson falls right in between those two, or maybe right under those two in terms of overall potential. I don't know if he'll be there all 4 years, but he'll contribute right away.
All right. And going down through the first team, you've got James, you've got Michael Ely, you've got Belanc, you've got LeFew, you've got Tosh Vesky. It's really not many differences between the first, second team. You can quibble about a spot here and there, but there was one big difference on that second team I want to call out. and that's that you had George Tinsley from Mount St. Mary's on the second team. Didn't make any All MAC team. So what were you thinking there?
I usually pick my all conference, and I said this on Twitter too, the way the coaches normally would, which gives a nod to seniors and rewards winning, as opposed to some other sites and some other prognosticators that have incoming transfers that get on all conference teams sight unseen. Usually doesn't happen in the MAC. In fact, this year's only the second time in my 12, now going on 13 years covering the league, that I've seen a transfer get on a preseason all conference team. The only other time was 2 years ago with Shavar Reynolds at Monmouth. So I based it on what was coming back and what could ultimately be expected. I think George Tinsley is going to fly under the radar at Mount St. Mary's. Engelstad has a lot of bigs. Maybe that worked against him in a sense, but he could be a 10-8 kind of guy, which is normally good enough for second team if you have a top half team in the conference.
Yep. No question. And then really, even the third team, I mean, you quibble, you have somebody on from, you have, let's see, you went with Gatson instead of Long. You went with Latrell Reed instead of Washington from St. Peter's. So not much to quibble with there, but Iona fans may have a quibble with you, as two Gales made the third team for all preseason All MAC, and Joel Brown and Idon Tritu, and neither one of those guys made it. How do you justify putting Iona second and only one All MAC guy for you?
Well, again, the incoming transfers. I want to see how they adjust to the league before I go ahead and make a premature judgment. I mentioned this a couple of years ago when I left Tyson Jolly and Elijah Joyner off my preseason teams as well. Sharkey was the one who actually asked me about it. And I told him, I said, I normally don't pick transfers sight unseen until I have a chance to watch them and evaluate them in person. And sure enough, I was proven wrong. And I expect the same thing to happen this season. I tend to lean more toward what I know and err on the side of caution this time of year. But come March, you're going to probably see at least 10 of the 15 spots totally different from where I had them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and this year is just such a mystery. I mean, you just don't know. It's impossible. Yeah, I mean, this the whole league is just got ravaged so much that you just don't know who's going to play a role and who's not, and who's going to fit into what system and all of that.
Right.
And so even just picking the standings, like you said, it would be epic if we all went 10-10, because it's certainly on the table. I think this year. I mean, you know, Ryder, as good as they look on paper, you can see them maybe not quite being as good. Iona might struggle a bit, and then you see Manhattan's probably going to be, you know, might be better than we all think. St. Peter's, same thing. And then all of a sudden you're looking up and you can see everybody between 12 and 8, 8 and 12 for sure. So it's going to be a fun year in the MAC for sure. Any other overall thoughts on the MAC you want to share before we let you go? And do you think the league could be better than you expect, or do you think we're in for maybe a playing round game in Dayton this year?
It could be. I do think the MAC winner, unless it's Iona or maybe Ryder, because Ryder has a good non-conference schedule, Marquette, Maryland, Nebraska on there. If it's somebody outside the top two preseason who wins the league, they're probably going to Dayton, but that's not a bad thing. That's a chance to get a win in the tournament and get more units for the conference. So you got to look at it that way. I do think whoever wins the league is probably on the 16 line, maybe on the 15 line if all hell breaks loose in some of the other leagues. I don't want to say it's going to be a complete down year from last season, but it's going to be a readjustment. That's what I'll call it.
Okay. And I can't let you leave without getting your take on our two new members of the MAC that'll be joining us in Sacred Heart and Merrimack. What do you think they're going to bring to the league? How do you see their programs over time?
Okay, well, I haven't been around Sacred Heart for a little bit from when I still paid attention to the NEC, and having covered Anthony Latina as long as I have. He's a good dude. You'll get to know him and love him, especially on November 10th. My goal is to have him come up for the post-game press conference, if at all possible. Sacred Heart's going to be a very strong team the way they've normally done business is by developing players for 4 years. It hasn't worked as well in the last couple seasons because guys have left, but they're a defensive-oriented team with some good offense. They're a mid to high 60s kind of team, usually on a normal effort. And from what I've seen from MAAC from a distance, that's almost like the Ed Cooley Fairfield defense mixed with the John Dunn St. Peter's defense of 2017. That was the CIT team that won that championship. Joe Gallo is one of the better coaches in New England and doesn't get enough respect for the job that he's done at MAAC. I look forward to that team in the conference, maybe making a trip up outside of Boston at least once a year too, to see what these guys are all about a little more. I've only seen them in person once against St. John's last year, and they forced 29 turnovers on a St. John's team that had Joel Soriano. So I think the MAAC's being very proactive. I've heard rumors about realignment not being done yet. I won't speculate any further, but if it goes to 13, you're going to have a very strong quality league.
All right. Well, Jaden, as always, we really appreciate you coming on, and you're one of the Iona fan base's favorites, as you know, because you've always given us great coverage. And even though you are a St. John's guy by your nature, you're not really a St. John's guy, which makes us only more endeared to you. So appreciate you coming on. What did you think of St. John's versus Pace, by the way? You might as well share a quick thought on that.
I wasn't there. I was at Fordham. So I was watching from a distance, and I'll tell you, I was admittedly satisfied. Yes. my connections to St. John's and my degree and my credential. I was never a fan. I've just covered them. And because Massiello and DJ are there, and those are my two guys, I have a want to see them succeed just for the sake of those two guys. But
yeah.
I have maroon and gold in my family. My mother went to Iona and was there when Jimmy V was coaching. So the Gales have been a part of my history for all 37 years I've been alive.
And you've been a part of this podcast for the last 3 years and now 4 years. So we appreciate you coming on. We'll have you on again during the year again, and sure we'll catch up as we get ready for, another MAAC tournament. So thank you again for coming on, Jaden, and we will talk to you again soon. Thanks, as always, to Jaden Daly for stopping by the pod. The first two games went as I predicted, sort of. And now we turn our eyes to Florida and Thanksgiving. I'm thankful for all of you for listening to my inane prattle each episode. That's for sure. Anyway, go Gales.
Thank you for listening to this edition of the IonaHoops.com podcast. This podcast is a production of IonaHoops.com with publisher Guy Filatico. The opinions shared during this podcast are those of Guy Filatico, IonaHoops.com, and any featured guests. This podcast is not affiliated with Iona University Athletics or the university itself. Thank you for supporting IonaHoops.com.